To Hell and Back by Cassandra Kimball. I woke up that morning like any other morning. I was sitting on the couch racking my brain for any possible way to come up with money. I just needed one more hit so I wouldn't be sick. As I was sitting drinking my coffee, my grandmother came into the living room and sat down in her chair. After a few minutes of silence, she turned to me and simply said, "We need to talk." Then she tossed me a red heart-shaped cosmetic bag. My heart just dropped. I instantly recognized that bag. I had used that bag for months to store my paraphernalia. For a split second, I thought about lying to her, but I decided to tell the truth. I was so tired of living in all my lies that I just gave up and confessed my deepest, darkest secret to the only person I knew that I could. I started to cry, and I told my grandmother that I was a heroin addict. I wanted to stop, but I didn't know how to do it on my own. After I told her, my grandmother got up and walked over to me and said, "It's okay. We're going to get through this together." And then she hugged me as I cried. The next day, I went into inpatient rehab. I stayed for 14 days, the duration of the program. Like many addicts before me, I didn't stay clean. Instead, I ran back to the people, places, and things of my past. I was not physically bound to the drugs anymore, but I still was feeling all of the pain and loneliness from the past traumas I had experienced. Mary Pfeiffer explains that especially in traumatic situations, most of us think in short term and seek immediate soothing comforts. I did just that when I ran back to the heroin to soothe my pain. After 2 more years of pain and in and out of rehab, I committed a crime and got caught. I stole my grandmother's debit card and her checks to pay for my drugs, and she pressed charges against me in hopes that I would get clean and stay clean. I spent 3 weeks in a jail cell. After the first 5 days of intense detox, I woke up with a clear head and truly looked around. I saw the life that I had created for myself while I was under the spell that the drugs had over me. The moment of clarity was a very powerful motivator for me to get and stay clean. As I sat in the cell and I looked around me, I saw the reality of my situation. I was in jail, facing 8 felony charges that could lead me straight to prison. And to top it off, I had hurt the one person that truly cared for me no matter what I did. I went for my arraignment hearing and found out that I was eligible for a deferment program created for drug addicts. It was called Drug Court. I was released from jail on my own personal recognizance bond. Immediately after my release, I went to my other grandmother's house and grabbed a cup of coffee, a change of clothes, a cigarette, and walked to the Alano Club. The Alano Club is a building that is designed for Alcoholics Anonymous and Narcotics Anonymous meetings. I was determined to stay off drugs at this point and forced myself to walk to NA every day, rain or shine. Didn't matter to me, I was going. I wanted to learn the program. After 1 month of doing this, I was finally sentenced into drug court with 2 years of probation and charged with 3 felonies. During the program, I was required to engage in group and individual therapy, maintain full-time employment, which was 30 hours a week minimum, go to AA or NA a minimum of 3 times per week, see my probation officer, my case manager, and the judge on a weekly basis. With all the things I had to do, it was hard to find time for myself, let alone finding times to do drugs. So I was able to stay clean very easily. Although my body was free of drugs, I was still struggling to keep my sanity, and my depression was growing out of control. By the time I had 6 months clean, my grandmother let me move back in with her. I was trying to make my amends with her for all the things that I had done wrong to her while I was using drugs. At 9 months, my depression had gotten out of control. I didn't want to live anymore. If I had to feel like this all the time, what was the point? I had made a choice to end it all, and I jumped in front of a Metro Transit bus. Lucky for me, the bus driver was quick on his reflexes and he slammed on the brakes and just barely stopped before hitting me. I went to my therapist and told her what had happened, and the psychiatrist had placed me on Prozac, an antidepressant, and I was started working with my therapist and truly opening up to her about my life. She had me practice meditation on my own time in between our sessions. Pema Chodron said, through meditation, we're able to clearly see what's going on through our emotions and thoughts, and we can also let them go. This was the same reasoning my therapist used when encouraging me to try meditation. It helped greatly, and I started to change my thinking. My self esteem started to improve, and I was forgiving myself and others for past wrongs we had committed. I was beginning to finally feel at peace within. I still had good days and bad days, but there were more good days than bad days. I went to court on Friday, October 29th, 2010, dressed up in a Halloween costume. I was wearing a red prom dress, fairy wings that I had sewn to the dress, a glitter tattoo on my forehead, and crazy makeup and hair. I had asked permission to do so and was told that I could. I thought I was going to be moving into the next phase of drug court and planned on helping my aunt with trunk or treating at her church. My plan was not in the cards for me that day. After court started, I was the first person called up to speak with the judge. I was confronted about lying and was now on my way to jail in a Halloween costume. As I was being placed in handcuffs, I had to ask the arresting officer to lift my fairy wings so I could place my hands behind my back. After serving 3 days in jail, I was released into Kalamazoo Probation Enhancement Program, also known as KPEP, because I had lied and did not have full-time employment. During my stay in KPEP, my grandma went into the hospital and never came back out. I was allowed to go to the hospital and say my goodbye to her. When I got to the hospital, I saw the only person who continued to love me even when I had forgotten to love myself, hooked up to various medical machines. I walked over to my grandmother and I gave her a kiss on the forehead. I whispered in her ear, "Grandma, I just want you to know that I am so sorry for all of the things I've ever done to you, and I love you so much." My grandma wasn't very lucid, but she looked at me, and she nodded with a tear running down her cheek. Then the doctors came in and took her off of life support, and I watched her die in front of me. I was very upset after I left the hospital, and I returned to KPEP. After I had returned, I left again to go cash my part-time paycheck. As I walked out of the bank with cash in hand, I realized that nothing could ever make me return to using drugs. I was released from KPEP and had a new-found respect for life. I decided to go to college so that I could graduate drug court, and I was amazed to find that I enjoyed learning. I graduated from drug court on February 3rd, 2012, just 2 days after my birthday. After my first semester, I decided I wanted to get my degree in the one thing that I knew could make a difference in the world for people like me. So I am on an amazing path to becoming a therapist who specializes in drug addiction. I want to give hope to someone who feels like there's no hope left. I know what it feels like, and it took someone special to get me to understand too. I had learned and was continuing to live the 12 steps of NA. The 12th step states, having had a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps, we carry this message to addicts and practice these principles in all of our affairs. And that is just what I'm going to do for the rest of my life. An addict's life can easily follow Plato's myth of the cave. I was the prisoner in the cave with the chains of addiction binding me into a dark place. The fire behind me was my fear of letting go and making change. The shadows were distant memories of pain and trauma that I couldn't clearly see. The puppeteers that walked on the stage and created the shadows were all of the people that I was unable to forgive for the trauma they had caused me. Once I finally broke free of the chains and went out into the world, I was finally able to see just how much beauty and happiness I could have. So now that I know I am the great, 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 great grandniece of Socrates, I am going into the cave with a different message to other addicts. I come with the message that change is hard, but the beauty of it is amazing, and I am here to help.